Rules 3, 4, 5, and 6 cover the most important principles that govern punctuation because they are concerned with the proper use of the period and the proper use of comma. These rules should be so thoroughly mastered that their application becomes second nature. Rule 7 states, use a colon after an independent clause to introduce a list of particulars, an appositive, an amplification, or an illustrative quotation. In other words, first you need to write an independent clause, follow the independent clause with a colon, and then provide the other material which amplifies the independent clause, which is a general idea, into more particulars or into something more specific. You can use a list of particulars, which might be a list of ingredients for a cooking dish, an appositive, which might be an explanation of a general idea, an amplification, which extends an idea, or an illustrative quotation, which communicates more cleverly the general idea proposed in the independent clause. Here's an example of the improper use of the colon. Your dedicated whittler requires a knife, a piece of wood, and a back porch. Why is this an improper use? Because here the use of the colon is gratuitous. It's not necessary. The sentence reads perfectly well without the colon. There's no introduction of a general idea which needs to be amplified by the list of particulars. So here we've removed the colon. To really use the colon properly, we can introduce a general idea by saying, your dedicated whittler requires 3 props. Then the question is, what are those 3 props? The colon suggests that there will now be an explanation of what those 3 props are in much more detail. Well, it turns out the 3 props required by whittler are a knife, a piece of wood, and a back porch, presumably to sit on. Use of colon is important, especially today, because it is used so often in PowerPoints. Instead of just providing a list, try to use the colon as a way of setting an independent clause with a general idea off from a list of particulars which are required for that general idea to make sense and to become more concrete. Another example of the use of colon might have a journalistic usage or might have a use within a story or within an explanation, is the introduction of a quotation. The best way to introduce a quotation is to explain why you're introducing that quotation, provide the context, or provide some kind of general idea which the quotation will then exemplify. So here we have the example. The squalor of the streets reminded him of a line from Oscar Wilde, colon, and then in quotation marks, we will now have the quote from Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde once wrote, "We are all in the cutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." Gives us something to think about, but without providing some kind of a context, the sentence, the quotation, won't make sense. The two go hand in hand.